Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, sporadic development. New tonight on Our News Weekend, Hurricane Lee weakens to a Category 2 storm overnight, but strengthens again to a Cat 3. Forecasters predict it may strengthen again over the next 24 hours. Plus, 2 officers involved in an incident with a teen are now under investigation. Their behavior caught on camera. And later, a message of hope. Brothers of Phi Alpha fraternity share a meal with young men at Simpson Penn School for Boys. Their inspiring words of wisdom are straight ahead. Our News Weekend starts right now. This is Our News Weekend. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Marlena Leonard. Hurricane Lee inching closer and closer to the islands as a Category 3 storm. It's had some sporadic movements over the past 24 hours, weakening to a Category 2 and then strengthening again to a Cat 3 in the latest alert from the National Hurricane Center. Joining us now with the latest is meteorologist Ian McKenzie. Ian, what are we seeing? It's had quite the mixed-up trek.
Thanks, Marlena. Well, as we forecast yesterday, we can expect fluctuations in intensity with a storm of this magnitude. And what we saw and what we actually came to fruition is no different. We can see that Lee is now developing an eye again, and this is indicative of its strengthening. However, it's still in a somewhat hostile environment, but over the next 24 to 36 hours, it should gain more strength and then bump up again to a Cat 4. Now, as you can see with Lee, the high pressure system kept Lee going towards the west, and eventually the western portion of the high pressure system was the weakest part, and that was courtesy, or is expected to be courtesy, of a trough that should dip down off the eastern seaboard and then take Lee towards the west-northwest and eventually towards the north, where these systems want to go anyway as they move from the equator poleward. Now, taking a look at our track, which most of you love to look at, now, again, we're seeing Lee remaining a major storm, but we have to take note that the storm will eventually remain a major storm from 3 to 4 and then eventually weaken by about 8 a.m. on Friday. So that's what we're looking at, Marlena.
Right. Thanks for that, Ian. And I know for our audiences at home, they're wondering what they should be expecting this week. And, you know, even though it's so far away, should we be worried, or considering the distance, how should we be feeling right now?
Well, the thing about it, Marlena, is that we still expect hazardous boating and beaching conditions. Now, in terms of weather, it should not impact us for rainfall, nor much wind. Islands in the southeast Bahamas may get a bump up about 15 to 20 knots. That's pretty much it. But those hazardous boating and beaching conditions, and as well as we can expect some coastal erosion and possibly coastal flooding. Now, you can expect sand debris as well along coastal roads and northern shorelines. So we're asking motorists to exercise extreme caution and care, and pedestrians as well as they traverse the streets. And oh yes, my friends in Eleuthera, the glass window bridge, please exercise extreme caution, and by midweek, you shouldn't even be trying to traverse that bridge. And my friends in Grand Bahama, can't forget you either. The Fishing Hole Road, stay put and away from that area.
Right. And I'm very interested in this slow movement we're seeing. It seems kind of similar to Dorian back in 2019. Can you explain to us how the speed of a storm affects its development?
Well, Marlena, there are several ingredients involved in that. You have to look at the larger scale features. And with that storm, it had that strong high pressure system that pretty much kept it at bay. Now, the sad thing about it is that normally storms tend to become a bit more erratic and they can gain more strength as long as they don't have any type of environmental factors affecting them. Okay, now when you have these upper level troughs, I know in this case now, guys, upper level trough will help you. Okay, will help the sharing as we saw earlier once the storm slows down, but once it moves out of that area, these storms are hybrid and advanced nowadays, Melina. They develop an environment unto themselves. They feed off the warm waters, and that's what we have, warm waters that could enhance the strength of the storm, and that's exactly what we're going to see over the next several days.
All right, thank you so much for that, Ian. Ian's going to be back with us for our extended forecast, so be sure to stay tuned. Now, unfortunately, the country's latest homicide came in today, disturbing an otherwise quiet Sunday in the Yellow Elder community. Initial police reports say residents saw two masked men in dark-colored clothing walking along Lightbourne Street around 3 p.m. But Chief Superintendent Chrislyn Skipping says it's unclear how one of them died or where the other man is now.
Two masked male, both of whom were clad in dark clothing and gloves, were observed running west along Lightbourne Street when one of the men produced a firearm and fired gunshots. It is believed that during the exchange of gunshots, the deceased was shot by his accomplice, who fled the area running west along Lightbourne Street. Police recovered from the scene a magazine for a high-powered weapon. The deceased is known to police. He's presently on bail for murder.
Chief Superintendent Dr. Chaswell Hanna says despite many career criminals finding their way back onto the streets, particularly those on bail, police are still doing their part to uphold the law.
One of the strategies we're using, not only in the Grove division, but all the other divisions, is we are paying closer attention to those persons who are supposed to be signing in. And where there are breaches, we are rearresting them and taking them before the court with a view to have their bail revoked.
And two police officers involved in an incident with a teen caught on camera are being investigated. This viral video showing the officers' handling of a child. The Royal Bahamas Police Force says the behavior displayed by the officers has led to an extensive investigation into the matter. The force now in damage control, reiterating its commitment to providing quality law enforcement. The force says quick and decisive actions will be taken for any misconduct. And kidneys topping the list in a donor organ transplant program expected to begin soon. That's good news for Bahamians suffering with kidney disease, particularly those in need of a transplant. According to a recent Pan American Health Organization report, in the Bahamas in 2019, kidney diseases accounted for 30.9 deaths per 100,000 of the population, with a high risk of mortality pegged at about 60 to 80%. The numbers putting the Bahamas in the fourth quintile of all countries. Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Darville says nurses and other healthcare professionals are about to start training ahead of the program's launch.
It is a transplant program that is presently being activated. As a matter of fact, yesterday we met with some of our key team players. We're about now to start training of our nurses in the UK and getting everything ready as far as the manpower resources are concerned to start first in the country kidney transplants, and then it would expand to other types of transplant surgery.
In his budget communication, Dr. Darville said government planned to get the program off the ground this year, as many Bahamians suffering from renal disease. Dr. Darville says he believes the program will improve the quality of life for many patients currently on dialysis.
I want to make it clear that not everyone qualifies for transplant surgery. And so that's the reason why our medical team, our surgical team, along with our consultants from the UK, will begin to see cases the minute as everything is in place and our nurses are trained, and go through the stages where we'll start the interviewing processes with family and potential donors and see exactly whether or not you are a true candidate or not. But this administration is committed to start a transplant program in the Bahamas at its earliest convenience, and the steps are presently being made with our team locally.
And now to news on the economy, as it seems tourism trends are changing. And according to the country's tourism chief, the slow periods are seeing record highs. The news comes as the tourism minister says all signs point to a record 8 million visitor arrivals by the end of the year. Berthany McDermott reports.
The soft season, as you put it, or the slow season, as we sometimes call it, is officially a thing of the past.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism Chester Cooper says the Bahamas can now look forward to enjoying year-round tourism business and hotel occupancy as his office works to build Brand Bahamas.
We have worked very hard as a team at the Ministry of Tourism. We have worked very hard putting in place opportunities for increased airlift from many of our markets. We're refocusing on the West Coast. You're seeing JetBlue come in November. You're seeing much new airlift come from Seattle and LA and other cities with Alaska Airlines. We see American Airlines ramping up significantly.
Cooper, who was addressing the weekly press briefing, touted new jet services into Abaco, Eleuthera, and Exuma by multiple airlines. This increased air travel, he says, comes as the country's tourism product continues its post-pandemic bounce back.
And as a result of all of the business strategies that we have put in place, as a result of the hard work of Team Tourism, as a result of the work we're doing in terms of research and the use of technology. We have Andre Miller, one of our senior directors, who are working daily in terms of technology and innovation. We are building on our product.
The news comes as Cooper predicts a record 8 million visitors for 2023. So far, tourism arrivals are pacing at 50% above 2022 and 30% above 2019, which at the time was the country's busiest year on record for tourism.
They like to come during what used to be the slow period. The rates are slightly better. But I should tell you that average daily rates overall all across the year is up. Occupancy up. This is an exciting time for Bahamas tourism.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Now to Eleuthera, as passengers traveling into and airlines operating out of the North Eleuthera Airport set to get some relief with a temporary facility, while government works on a new airport. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister responsible for aviation Chester Cooper announcing the relief recently and described conditions at the existing airport as unacceptable.
This is the second or third busiest airport in the country. This environment is booming for tourists and residents. The circumstances at the airport was completely unacceptable. Whilst we acknowledge that it will take some time to build a new airport, in the short term, we see the need to provide some immediate relief. And therefore, we have sought temporary facilities that we have acquired through the Airport Authority. And they are en route to North Eleuthera to provide temporary accommodations.
The aviation minister says not enough resources have been pumped into Family Island airport facilities. The North Eleuthera Airport is one of 14 airports on the government's Airport Renaissance list. Cooper stressed that a permanent fix is coming.
I want to emphasize to the people of North Eleuthera that this is a temporary facility. And North Eleuthera is high on the agenda by way of the government's priority to ensure that it also has a world-class airport.
We are just getting started in Our News Weekend, but when we come back, a snack frenzy over at the National Stadium. Hundreds of cars line the parking lot for Rotaract Snack Attack. But first, we shine a spotlight on members of the hearing impaired community. Find out about a day in the life when Our News returns.
Doctors Hospital has reimagined primary care. We have invested to improve our health system, ensuring that accessible, affordable, world-class clinical care is closer to you. Your relationship with a primary care provider shapes the foundation of your overall health. Our new, modern primary care facilities are where critical diagnosis and true personalized treatment begin. With locations across New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Exuma, we invite you to experience the Doctors Hospital difference. Book your next appointment at clinics.doctorshos.com.
As you go to the grocery store, gas station, bank, or do any of your daily tasks, we can easily take for granted our ability to hear. But do you ever give thought to what running an errand may be like for a deaf person? Well, tonight, a sign language interpreter and advocate is sharing why she believes more people should take an interest in learning sign language.
Annette Lunn is not just a sign language interpreter at the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. She's also a mother to a deaf son. She's often asked to interpret for seminars, workshops, and even job and visa interviews. But imagine, she says, a day in the life of a deaf person.
From a frontline standpoint, if you are, let's say, at the food store as a deaf person, an interpreter can accompany every deaf person everywhere they go. But a person knows basic sign language, just once they recognize that the person is deaf. I don't use hearing impaired. We just stick with deaf. If they recognize that the person is deaf, and just saying hello or what's your name, or can I help you, or things like that, and you'll be amazed at how receptive a deaf person would be once they know that a person is learning their language, or want to be a part of the deaf culture. And so I think more persons should learn sign language, even if it's just the basic.
Lon says she believes sign language should actually be a part of the school curriculum. Referring to her Herring granddaughter, she explains even babies can learn the language.
We can't assume that persons can learn the language from birth because, she's grown up that being her first language because both of her parents are deaf. And so I think starting from young, teaching the kids, this is apple, this is banana, or to the bathroom, or different things like that, because they can voice it and sign it. And you never know where it's going to take them in life.
But make no mistake, Lon says there are many people in the deaf community who are working and thriving.
Deaf persons, like any other persons with a disability, they manage. And they make the best out of the circumstances that they were given in life. And so I would never say that the person are at a disadvantage. I think we more as persons who are normal feel as though that they are at a disadvantage. But I think once we expose ourselves to their language and to their culture, I feel we realize that they're just like everybody else, and they have a right to live a life that is equal.
Reporting for Our News Weekend, I'm Megan Shepard.
Thanks for that, Megan. And to learn more about the deaf community, you can see that story again right at ournews.bs. We can all use a bit of solid advice from time to time, and that's what the Eugene DePuch Law School aims to offer with its free community legal aid program. Since starting the clinic last year, the school has done its best to put on a clinic every quarter to offer free legal consultations for people in the community. Nicole Sutherland King is the director of the Legal Aid Clinic and the coordinator of the community-driven program.
We have found that a lot of times persons just need some advice. An ounce of prevention is better than cure, and a lot of times the legal advice that they get here allows them to better navigate whatever the issue is that they're experiencing. Many of the persons who come here are able to then attend the relevant courts. We get quite a few persons who may need assistance with understanding how to attend before the magistrate's court, what would be their next steps, whether or not they need to get police intervention, whether they need to go to Supreme Court. So what we're really doing is trying to provide direction for them. Most of the persons who come here then will go on to take the next step. Some of our attorneys are also generous enough to take them on as clients, so they secure representation from this service as well.
Former MP and Education Minister Jeff Lloyd is a partner at Colonel's Chambers, and this is his second time volunteering for the clinic.
It's just an opportunity, and I think people should take advantage of it. I think this is a great opportunity that they have to come and ask a lawyer. We're offering our services free of charge. I'm more than happy to do it. We know that people need advice in the community, particularly issues around, like I say, family, as well as property issues. Please take advice. And as the director said earlier, follow on Facebook. I think it is CLAP on Facebook. Said register, sign up, and the next time that there is an opportunity, come out and get some advice. It's all free.
Many colleges and universities from abroad visiting the Bahamas to be a part of the Nassau Airport Development Company's recent career fair at the New Providence Community Center. NAD officials say the hope is to give airport employees and their children an opportunity to further their education. International Missions Recruitment Officer at Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada, Jessica Morrow, says they're excited to be part of the fair, adding that there are a lot of opportunities at the institution.
We're a comprehensive university, so we have over 250 programs from music and arts to engineering and business and architecture and so many things in between. So hopefully students here will find something that they're interested in. And today's been great. We're talking to a lot of mature students who are looking at maybe going back to school after having started their career or finishing high school or post-secondary a little bit later in life. So it's been really interesting conversations because students know a little bit more about what they're looking for, opposed to talking to students who are maybe just brand new young graduates.
And if you're interested in this Canadian university, she says Canada is a study destination.
It works in a couple of different ways, so both through a student's education on their study permit they're legally able to work 20 hours a week off campus, unlimited hours on campus. Not that we want them to work that much. We need to balance that with study. But it gives them a chance to earn a little bit of an income, start gaining that international or Canadian work experience. But then after they graduate, like you alluded, they would be eligible for what we call the post-graduation work permit, PGWP. So they could be eligible to work up to 3 years on an open work permit after they graduate. So a chance to continue to gain experience, decide if Canada is a place that they want to be, maybe permanently or long term.
When Our News comes back from the break, you may have noticed quite the crowd of cars in the parking lot at the National Stadium yesterday. We'll share the delightful snack extravaganza that brought joy to both parents and their children. And later, chefing it up with Chef JJ Johnson. Find out the growing popularity of Caribbean cuisine in a screening of his show, Just Eats, when Our News returns.
Collect Verse access is as easy as grab a collect, scan a collect. Open your camera app, focus on the QR code, and click the link that appears. You own your Collect Verse experience. Take selfies, join the cultural referendum, and share with your friends. See content from local chefs, Olympic athletes, and cultural icons. Collect is proud to be 50. Grab a collect, scan a collect. Get in the Collect Verse today.
This is Our News. Welcome back. The Rotaract Club Southeast Nassau Centennial drawing a massive crowd for its 3rd annual Snack Attack event. This as hundreds of backpacks filled with snacks were handed out. If you passed the National Stadium yesterday, then you may have seen the parking lot jam-packed with cars. Lanique Bryce is the club's vice president.
We started back in 2020 because of the pandemic. It was a financial strain on everybody having to cease work for a while. So we decided to give back a week's worth snacks for those in need, and our goal is 500 bags each time. Honestly, for the past 3 years, it has been chaotic in a good way. And a lot of persons who are just passing by would just see the line and they'll stop and be like, hey, what's going on? And they come in at the right time to get some goods for the kids.
While some may believe the post-pandemic economic hardships are over, the need for assistance is still high. And despite the rain, cars lined the stadium parking lot with parents and their kids all hoping to snag some snacks.
The reaction has been great, I must say. Despite the rain, they stayed, they waited, and they were very patient with us. Words cannot express the way that they feel right now, and to know that there are persons and organizations out there who have a kind heart that are still willing to dig deep in their pockets, and the smallest gratitude goes the longest way.
The initiative had an impressive roster of sponsors, but Bryce says the need is still great. If you're a business owner interested in helping the cause, here's how you can become a sponsor next year.
They could reach out to us at rotaract.senc.bahamas@gmail.com.
An awesome initiative, and the back-to-school giving continues as some 750 youngsters in the 8 Mile Rock community got some much-needed supplies ahead of their return to the classroom. A block party powered by Essentials convenience store, Trigger Kicks, and Grand Central Liquors saw the school-age kids walk away with big prizes like laptops and various gift certificates. Event partner Chris Williams Jr.
We've got free food, burgers, hot dogs, snow cones, cotton candies. We've got hair braiding, haircuts, games, giveaways, tablets, gas vouchers, teeth cleanings. Had a lot of small business partner up with us to make it an even better event. Each one reach one, so if everybody can get together, we'll make it a better thing.
Owner of Essentials convenience store Mahail Swan says since day one there's been tremendous support from the 8 Mile Rock community, making it all worth the more while to give back.
We like to encourage all small businesses, because this event today consisted of multiple small businesses. It was just powered by Essentials, Grand Central Liquors, and Trigger Kicks, but we had about 10 to 12 smaller businesses that actually came out and gave to this event, such as they might have given gift certificates, the laptops, grilling. They gave food back, burgers, hot dogs. So we just want to tell every small business to give back. You don't have to wait to to reach this big business level that you want to, but give back to the community, you know.
And we've got a special treat for you tonight from a special guest in town for the past week. Celebrity chef J.J. Johnson, also known as Chef J.J., took over the kitchen at Bimini Road in Marina Village. On Thursday, Chef J.J. hosted a screening of his show Just Eats, where he explained his ties to the Caribbean.
My connection to the Caribbean it runs in my DNA. My grandfather's from Barbados. My grandmother's from Puerto Rico. My dad is African American, so I'm like the true kid of the African diaspora. And I'm constantly celebrating that food.
Chef JJ also says he sees his content as a way to shine a light on untold stories around food.
If you see me cooking on television, if you come to my restaurant, if it's in my cookbooks, I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. And there's a lot of people with voices that have never been told about their food. And I feel like I'm telling the food of the people.
We are winding down in our news weekend, but when we come back, meteorologist Ian McKenzie is back in the Weather Center tracking Hurricane Lee and what you need to know for the week ahead. And the message of hope we promised you at the top of the show. Brothers of the Phi Alpha fraternity take their outreach to the Simpson Penn School for Boys. The inspiring story when our news weekend returns.
Collect verse access is as easy as grab a clip, scan a clip. Open your camera app, focus on the QR code, and click the link that appears. You own your Collect Verse experience. Take selfies, join the cultural referendum, and share with your friends. See content from local chefs, Olympic athletes, and cultural icons. Click is proud to be 50. Grab a click, scan a click. Get in the Collect Verse today.
Welcome back to Our News. We continue to keep our eyes on Hurricane Lee as it moves through the Atlantic. Ian McKenzie is back in the Weather Center with your extended forecast. And Ian, we've seen some sporadic activity with this storm. What can we expect for the rest of the week?
Okay, Marlena, we'll continue to keep a close eye on Lee. The issue with Lee, it's fluctuating with intensity. However, the track remains pretty much on tack. So we're looking at Lee to continue moving towards the west-northwest, eventually taking that north turn and then out of our area by the end of the week. Now, as it tracks towards the west-northwest and eventually towards the north, we can expect those hazardous marine conditions. So we're asking you beachgoers and boaters to exercise extreme caution. By midweek, we're asking you boaters to remain in port and you beachgoers to remain on shore. Taking a closer look at our forecast, current temperature across the country at this time. In Freeport City, we have 85. 85 also in Marsh Harbor. 87 in Allenstown, Bimini and Great Harbor Key. Also 87 Nichols Sound, Andros. 87 in the capital. The cool spot in the northwest Bahamas is Governor's Harbor tonight at 84. In the central Bahamas, we have 86 in Kemps Bay, Andros. 85 in Georgetown and Arthurstown, Kid Island. 86 in Coburn Town, San Salvador. And 85 also in Deadman Key, Long Island. For the southeast Bahamas, we have 86 in Duncantown, Ragged Island, 85 in Colonel Hill, and also Delectable Bay, Acklands, 86 in Abrahams Bay, Mayaguana, 87 in Mayaguana, and Matthewtown and Agua, 87 in Providenciales, Turks and Caicos. Take a look at a boating forecast. Now, this is where we want to really concentrate on over the next several days as we expect deteriorating marine conditions. Hazardous conditions to persist courtesy of Lee as it's expected to continue to pass just to the east of our area. We're looking at winds easterly at 10 to 15 knots, falling light and variable at times for tonight in the northwest and central Bahamas. We expect those rip currents out there for you swimmers, so we're asking you to exercise caution and boaters not to venture far from port. Seas will be 2 to 4 feet, but getting up to 7 feet in those easterly swells through tomorrow, and you can expect a low tide tonight at 1 a.m. For the southeast Bahamas, we expect winds to be east to southeast at 10 to 15 knots, still with those rip currents out there, and we're asking you boaters again to remain near port. This is primarily due to those swells. We'll have 2 to 4 feet near shore, but up to 9 feet offshore in those easterly swells. Here's a look at your national forecast. And in your extended forecast, as you can see, we have beautiful conditions courtesy of Lee as it is expected to pass just to the east of us. Now, that's the beautiful thing about when you have these major storms in the area. What they do, they absorb all the moisture. They give you stable conditions. We expect sunny conditions with the highs getting up into the low 90s, with the lows getting up to the upper 70s, low 80s. And if you check out on Sunday, we expect some rain to get back in the forecast area. This is courtesy of a cold front that's expected to approach our area. So Marlena, you've been asking about cold weather. Now, don't get all excited. I know a lot of Bahamians, you hear cold front. This will be more of a cool down, okay? So don't get too excited.
I'll take what I can get.
Okay.
But aside from that cool weather, I know you're mentioning some rough seas, maybe some pretty intense surf. What does that mean for some of our fishermen out there?
Well, that means there'll have to be a pause in their fishing activity, in particular those who are just getting into the crawfish season. Unfortunately, they'll have to just step back a bit. But the good thing about it, Marlena, there's a silver lining behind every dark cloud. Now, what I've learned over the years from just conversing with some fishermen, that the storm actually helps the crawfish to come up. So when they can't get to the crawfish ordinarily, the storm will help, what you call almost like an upwelling, bringing the cold water up to the top, so it'll help with the crawfish coming up as well. So they'll have a better catch. So kudos to them.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much for that, Ian.
No problem.
All right. And now the message of hope that it's not too late to turn things around for the better is one we can all cling to when we make a stumble in our choices. And that's the message members of the board of Phi Alpha brought to the young men at the Simpson Penn Center for Boys yesterday. The brothers spent the afternoon with the young men, sharing a meal and some words of wisdom and encouragement. Phi Alpha General President Willis Lonzer.
Young men can sometimes make poor choices, but the key for us coming here today was to ensure them that all of their choices don't necessarily define them for their entire life, and that there are dreams and aspirations that they could potentially have that can still be fulfilled. And we believe in the principle of what they're trying to do, and that's to correct their lives and become productive citizens.
Youssef Omer, a senior political science major at Virginia State University who serves on the fraternity's board of directors, was a part of that panel that spoke to the young men. He gave the young men words of affirmation and reminded them that education is critical.
Education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to take over the world, as Nelson Mandela once said. And that's what we did here today. My piece of advice for them was to be just see yourself in those seats. Fight for those seats. Strive for better. Strive for greatness. And wherever you go, Phi Alpha is there to help and lead you along in the way.
Thank you for joining us for Our News tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Marlena Leonard.